Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third of three short streams I'm doing on Halloween night of 2021. If you haven't watched the other two, that's fine. You can see them under short videos. But tonight, this last video, I'm going to talk about the anatomy of a demonic attack. So I've introduced you guys to who I am. I've introduced you to the basics of what demonology is. Now I want to get a little bit into the nitty-gritty of what it looks like when a demon gets into somebody's life, how they make everything go sideways, and what you can do about it. So demonic attack generally follows 5 stages. Doesn't always. It could skip stages. It may never get past certain stages. But broadly speaking, it's looking to follow 5 stages. And most of the time, if it reaches possession, which is the second to last stage, it'll go through the other ones. So the first stage, which is really critical to the whole thing, is what's called grounds. And one of the most common questions I get asked is, if demons are real, why don't they possess President Joseph Biden, former President Donald Trump, or anyone else with access to nuclear weapons? So they cause death and destruction on a massive scale. Thank you, Teresa. That's quite a compliment. And that's an extremely good question. Because you'd think if you have this group of beings that want to kill and ruin and destroy humans and ruin their lives, they'd go big. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Or at least they don't try. But the first hurdle to a demon entering our world is what we call grounds. Grounds is a very legal concept. A lot of what I'm going to talk about sounds like legal jargon and nonsense, because it kind of is. But it needs a reason why it can show up on our world and muck up your life. Grounds usually happens by one of 4 ways. The first way, and probably the most common, is what we call invitation. If you get the bright idea later tonight to grab your Ouija board and run out to the nearest cemetery and try to talk to Elvis, you're making an act of invitation. Will you get a demon? Maybe. Will you get a demon that'll move in and ruin your life? Probably not, actually. The majority of the time, when you use Ouija boards, you're pushing it, someone else is pushing it. It's what's called the ideomotor effect. It's happening on a purely subconscious level. You don't even know that you're moving the that shit. But it can provide this invitation. Invitation comes through occult practices. Ouija boards are the most common by far. About 90% of the cases someone like me gets involved with start because somebody had the brilliant idea to start messing with the Ouija board. Other ways that invitation can happen, and hello again, Lisa for Truth, is mucking around with black magic and devil worship. And I say devil worship here very deliberately because I don't mean Satanism. Well, I do mean Satanism, but I don't mean Satanism. Satanism is a loaded term. There's many different groups that claim that they are Satanism, but the 2 biggest groups that most of the others are offshoots of are the Church of Satan, started by Anton Szandor LaVey, and the Satanic Temple, started by, I believe his name's Lucian Greaves, or Graves. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Neither of which worships the devil. Neither of which is what I'm talking about when I say demon or devil worship. The Church of Satan is essentially a group of hedonists. Chase pleasure, avoid pain. With some moral rules. They use the name Satan as a giant middle finger to organized religion, particularly Christianity. White magic is definitely not what I'm talking about. Fun fact, even the medieval, how to hunt and kill witch texts distinguish between natural magic, which would be white magic, and black magic. And their issue is with black, not with white. But the point is, if you actually start worshiping the devil, if you actually try to start summoning demons, there's a chance it'll work. So that's invitation. The next concept is attraction. So, one's called the law of attraction, but I avoid using that because it makes this whole thing sound like a really terrible self-help book I can't stand. Attraction is also a simple concept. Invitation is if you ask for evil, you get evil. Attraction is if you do evil, you get evil. People who do truly awful acts often wind up demonically possessed. When an act is so evil, so wicked, so immoral, it just opens the door in its own right. And let me be clear. Some demonologists, yes, Dahmer is an excellent example, Lisa, as is Bundy, will tell you that being homosexual, practicing consensual oral sex, playing video games, eating junk food, that all of these things can lead you being demonically possessed. No, it can't. When I say evil acts, I mean murder. I mean rape. I mean child molestation. I mean necrophilia, having sex with dead bodies. I mean acts that are reviled by everyone who has any semblance of a conscience. Usually it's not once. It's something you have to do over and over and over again. Most serial killers, by the end of their time as serial killers, are possessed. Let's be clear, because this is easy to misunderstand. I do not mean that demons possess people and make them become serial killers. I mean, people become serial killers, and because they are serial killers, they become possessed. Their evil action opens the door. This is the reason this is important and so crucial theologically speaking, is that in my biased personal opinion, Christianity is, or is at least supposed to be, based on personal accountability and responsibility. You are responsible for the evil actions that you commit. If you're possessed by a demon, there's no accountability. You didn't do it, the demon did it. That is not how redemption and forgiveness work. You need forgiveness for what you did wrong, not for what the evil spirit that jumped into your body and started moving you around like a puppet. That's what I'm looking for. Did. There are the other ways that people become possessed. The next most common, and arguably even more common than the first two, is really bad luck. You buy a new house. That used to be a mortuary where one of the itinerant embalmers that they used had sex with corpses. You buy objects, you buy a weird looking statue that just catches your eye that happens to be a symbol of a demonic being. In Simo, I don't know that movie offhand, but that may very well be true. But you inherit somebody else's mistakes is essentially what this boils down to. The most common here is that you move into a place where somebody did one of the first two things. The Amityville Horror is a pretty good example of this, although there's some debate about that, because there's some evidence that the father of the family, George Lutz, was himself involved in black magic. So the next fairly common one, which also is not your fault, is that you become cursed. If you piss off a devil worshiper, if you piss off somebody involved in black magic, if you piss off one of the pagans that doesn't know what the heck they're doing, because legitimate pagans don't do this, and they curse you, that can bring a demon into your life. It's not the only way that curses happen, but it's a pretty common. A demon screwing with your life is a pretty common way to become cursed. Then there's the last way, which is by far the rarest. We're talking once in a generation type of situation, which is what's called the soul victim. Some people are so holy, so pious, so in tune with the divine, that it draws demonic spirits to them. Most people this is true of, you know the names of. Particularly because most people this is true of have long since been canonized by the Catholic Church or equally revered for their piety. One of the most famous examples of this is a man known historically as Padre Pio, though in my own lifetime he's become canonized as a saint who was a healer. He was a mystic. When a Christian mystic is someone who speaks directly to God and God answers. Pio was a mystic. Pio was a healer. Pio was an exorcist. There are many, many miracles attributed to him both during his life and afterwards. And he was under daily attack by demonic spirits. Not because he did anything wrong, but because his faith was that strong. It was a test. This is also Job in the book of Job of the Bible. If she was possessed, and that's a big if. I keep meaning to research this case so I can do an episode on it, but I haven't yet. Annalise Michel, which is the basis of the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose, would have been a soul victim. This is the saddest example because these people are under attack because they are so good. There's nothing they've done to earn it. Is stigmata a sign of soul sacrifice? That's a good question. Padre Pio did suffer the stigmata. I believe there are others that suffered the stigmata who came under attack like this. I don't know that the two are directly related. So Mo, let me look into that and talk about it in a future episode. That's a really good question. At any rate, so the demon has now moved in and set up shop in your life. Where does it go from here? The next stage is what we call infestation. Infestation is like a haunted house on steroids. It starts small. Most commonly what will happen, you'll be in bed, about asleep, and about 3 o'clock in the morning you wake up. And yes, so did St. Francis, and I'm pretty sure that St. Francis also came under attack. But so you wake up at 3 a.m., you hear somebody knock on maybe the front door of your house, maybe your bedroom door, maybe your window, 3 times very clearly at 3 a.m. and stop. If you go to the window, if you go to the door, no one's there. But the act of opening the door, the act of acknowledging it, lets the spirit, is another invitation to bring the spirit into your life, even without you knowing it. Yes, I'm quite certain he means St. Francis of Assisi, who was a stigmatist. Once it's there, you'll get objects moving on their own. You'll hear voices. Sometimes voices that only you can hear. Sometimes groups of people will hear them. You may be getting bitten. You may be scratched. You may feel like you're being choked. You'll be able to photograph these things. You'll be able to get audio recordings of these things. And Joker Cortez, that's also a really good question, which is, are dream demons real? Yes, I believe that they are. And that is another way that they can mess with you, particularly starting in infestation, and definitely in the later stages, is that they'll come into your dreams and muck around with those. A lot of ways, infestation will look like your classic haunted house movie. We've all heard the stories before. You hear footsteps on the stairs, but there's nobody there. You hear knocking, and there's nobody there. Weird sounds, weird smells. The walls drip blood. There's a couple of things that separate demonic infestation from haunting, though. Some of which are subtle, some of which are hit you over the head with a sledgehammer obvious. Some are hit you with a Mack truck obvious. Things tend to repeat in patterns of 3. Particularly, activity usually is at its worst at 3 a.m. The reason for which is very simple. In Christianity, in Wicca, in Buddhism, and in many other religions, 3 is a sacred number. Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Wiccan rule of 3. 3 is associated with God and the divine. Acting in threes is a way of mocking the divine. Remember the traits of demons. They're not human, they hate humans, they hate God. So they act in ways that are blasphemous. Acting in threes is an example. 3 a.m. is another example. Both because of, again, the importance of 3, but because 3 in the afternoon traditionally is the time that Jesus Christ died on the cross. Demons do things in reverse. 3 p.m. comes 3 a.m. The time of God's great victory over Satan becomes their time of power. All through this activity, though, it's starting to look for a target. Most of the time, if it was invited into the home, it'll pick the person who invited it. It'll probably target more than one person, though. And some people are more vulnerable than others. I hate to say this, but historically speaking, the most common targets of demons in a home were women. This is not because women are weaker than men. The witch trials got that wrong. The reason that a demonic haunting tends to focus on women more than men, historically, is that men went out to work, women stayed home and taking care of the home and the children. If you have one person who's home all alone for hours at a time, they're an easy target. It's not because they're weak, it's because they're there by themselves. And if you want to terrify somebody, an infestation is all about terror. It's easier to scare them if they're alone, or if they're just there with infant children. You make them vulnerable. You threaten the children. The other reason that women are often popular targets is also not a weakness, and it's not something inherent of being women, is the way that we socialize, is that women tend to be more emotionally open. Because again, this is not something, I'm not saying this is genetics, this is socialization, but women are taught to express their feelings, men are taught to repress their feelings. This is another avenue of attack. Men absolutely can become targets. It happens all of the time. Do not mistake me and think I'm saying it only happens to women. Particularly today, in the 21st century, men are becoming more and more common targets because women are going out to working too. But once it's got its favorite toy, it'll start to move into what's called oppression and obsession, where activity starts zeroing in on one person. You could have 6 people sitting in a room. One of them will see a hooded black figure walk into the middle of the room, turn and look at them, and vanish. Nobody else in the room sees it. Yes, somehow the Warrens were legit. I actually was taught by the last student they taught before Ed became sick. They were absolutely legitimate. But it will pick out one person. It will talk to that one person. It will terrorize them. It will isolate them. And it will abuse them. If you read the literature, a lot of it sounds a great deal like an abusive relationship. They abuse, they gaslight, they mess with people psychologically. They make people as vulnerable as possible because we're going to move into stage 4. But the big thing about oppression and obsession is it's starting to push their will down. It's wearing them out. There's the whole reason for terror. Demons gain power from fear. The more afraid you are, the more powerful they are. But it's also a psychological warfare. They're wearing you down. And as it gets later and later, the person will be less and less in control of themselves. They'll start doing things the demon tells them to do, because the demon will say, do this bad thing, and I'll leave you alone. And just like an abusive relationship, do this bad thing and I'll leave you alone. For a while, it'll leave you alone. And how long it leaves you alone gets shorter and shorter, and what it asks is more and more. And eventually, it's lying to you, but you're still doing it. Obsession and oppression tends to strongly resemble what everyone thinks of as possession. Possession is the fourth stage, and it's very rare. Maybe one case in 100 is actual possession. The rest are obsession and oppression. The crossing point when an oppressed person becomes possessed is when they give the demon consent. The entire purpose of every other stage is get into the person's life and wreck everything in that person's life until they are so psychologically worn down they agree to let the demon set up shop in their body. Then it becomes possession. In a case of possession, that spirit is inside that person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is another reason Satan doesn't do a whole lot of possessing. He's got other things to do than hang out in one body all the time. This is where they will start speaking. You will have someone who grew up their entire life speaking English suddenly conversing back and forth in fluent Serbo-Croatian. Yes, this is based on a real case. They will speak Latin. They will speak Aramaic. They will speak Hebrew. They will speak Sumerian. They will speak languages the person never possibly knew, but suddenly is fluent in. And I don't mean they'll say 3 or 4 words. I mean they will hold conversations with someone else who is fluent in the language. They will lift things many times what a human can lift. Farming tractors, chairs or statues that take 3 or 4 people to pick up, all fall into this category. And they know things. Lou used to say, if you really want to go to a fortune teller, don't go to the guy with the shop on the street corner. Find someone who's possessed. They'll know things they should never know. Whenever I did cases with one of my 2 mentors, Father Joe Bros, or Pastor Bros, he often would go in paint-spattered overalls. Not in his Roman collar as a priest. He wasn't a Catholic priest. He was an Antioch Orthodox. We just called him Joe. And if someone was possessed, Father Bros, they know. And that's why he would do that. The worst thing you ever did, a person possessed by a demon knows. Where you were last night, the demon knows. It will tell you all sorts of specific information that it has no business knowing. It can't really predict the future with perfect accuracy, but demons have been following humans for millennia. They're pretty good at predicting what we're going to do, and they can't see the future. Prophecy is not a power of the demonic, but they can see a little bit further down the road than we can. Objects will move around the room on their own accord. At this point, everything's gotten serious. Infestation you can usually resolve by doing a house blessing. Early obsession oppression you can usually resolve by doing a house blessing. If that doesn't work, you do an exorcism of place. Possession, late stage oppression, and possession in all cases always requires a formal exorcism of person. Which means that within the Roman Catholic Church, you need to go through a metric ton of paperwork. So what's the goal of the whole thing? What is the demon trying to do? It's trying to do a couple things. One, hell is hell. Demons don't like it down there any more than damn souls like it down there. And good Lord, I'm getting long again. So I'm going to wrap it up, and then we're going to call it a night for tonight. Being here on Earth and being in a person is a reprieve from that. Granted, once the exorcism starts, by all reports from demons, being subject to the ritual of exorcism is even more painful than actually being in hell. But they're stubborn and proud creatures. They don't want to go back. But its end goal is going to be traditionally it's called death. I prefer to call it destruction. It is going to try to totally destroy that person's life and everyone else's life around them. It may push them to murder. The case, The Devil Made Me Do, the Demon Murders case, aka The Devil in Connecticut, aka the movie that just came out, Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, is an example of one pushed this far. The demon will try to get you to kill someone. The demon will try to get you to kill yourself. It'll make you seem insane to everyone else around you, so that you wind up in a psychiatric hospital. It will try to get you to ruin your own life and as many other lives around you as it can. That is the end goal. The Bible tells us the devil comes not but to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's where it's all going. And that's why what I do matter. It matters to me. Can I prove that demons exist? Obviously, I cannot. People who are under demonic attack are well aware that they exist. So before I wrap it up for tonight, what can you do if you're under demonic attack? My email is in the description. I'm an active investigator. If you need help, reach out. I do not charge for my services. If you live very, very far away from me, I'm in the United States in New Jersey. If you live in England, I'm going to help you find a local group. If for some reason you're bound and determined to have me come out and help you, okay, but you're going to have to pay for my plane ticket. I don't make enough money to fly to England as much as I would like to. But most of the time, but really, I'm not that special. There are many other groups that know what they're doing all over the world, and it's not hard to find you somebody who can help you. That's the biggest thing, is don't give up help. There is help. And reinforcing that and making people aware of that is the main reason this show exists, besides the fact that I just like doing it. So that is going to wrap it up for tonight, everyone. I want to thank my live viewers. I had all the way up to 6 on this last stream. I don't usually get that high. God bless you all, or whatever deity you believe in. And if you don't believe in God, well, thank you for listening anyway. I don't mind. Everyone's welcome here. If you really like what I'm doing, please consider giving me a like, giving me a share, subscribing. If you really, really like what I'm doing, there's a link to my Patreon in the description below. That's patreon.com/demonology. Patreon.com/demonology. Any amount helps. All I do is free. Yeah, I don't charge to do cases. I will never charge to do these videos. And I work a 3 to 11 job, 40 hours a week. So any help is always appreciated. If you can't help me financially, liking, commenting, and subscribing is a great way to help this channel. I'd really like to see us finally get up to 1,000 subscribers so I can look at monetization. But that's going to do it tonight. Again, thank you all so much for joining me. God bless. Happy Halloween or so as is appropriate to you, or happy October 31st if you don't believe in or celebrate either. I don't judge. That's going to do it for tonight. I'll have a new video soon. Hopefully I'll have a new exciting project to announce in the near future. I'm trying to get some permissions to do something unspeakably cool I want to do my entire life, but I'm not going to talk about it now because it's still too early. But that's it for tonight. Good night, folks, and God bless.